So welcome everyone. I want to talk to you about the future, and I want to talk to you about the future of your business, your industry, and future-proofing your business, especially as we're getting to the end of another year and looking at the next 12 months ahead. Now it doesn't have to be something that you do at the end of the year. I'd love you to do this every 3 months, looking ahead 12 months. And I've called this slow, bumpy, and expensive, and I'll explain why and what that means for us in terms of our future and in terms of our business future. So to get started, this is going to be a really interactive webinar. So to get started, what I'd like you to do is tell me a little bit about yourself, but please don't start typing in the question box yet. I'd like to find out who you are and what sort of business you're in or what sort of job you do. And I'm going to show you the way to do that. And again, please don't start typing it until I explain it, because there's a very specific way that I'd like you to do this. So I'm going to ask you in a minute, not just yet, to go to askgihan.com and tell me who you are. And all I'm looking for is a first name and kind of a job title. So when you go to that page, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute when I'll ask you to do that, I want you to just say something like this. I'm Gihan and a professional speaker. So a couple of things. So you only have to put in your first name, because that's all we need to know at this stage. And if you're really wary about sharing who you are, then you can put in a fake name, but really there's no reason why you should do that. And then your job title, and make it a fairly generic title, because the broader that you can be, the better. So if you are a financial advisor or financial planner, say financial planner. Don't say you're a wealth creation strategist, because it may make sense to narrow it down when you're looking at your marketing. But in terms of what we're doing today, which is looking at things that might disrupt or challenge your industry, it's really good to be broad, because then you'll actually see more of the threats and the risks that might be affecting your business. So that's what I'd like you to do. So the way to do it is go to this. So now, if you're watching the webinar, just open up your web browser, and instead of watching the webinar screen, go to your web browser and go to askgihan.com. And I can see that Corinne has just started doing this, and I'll show you mine. So you'll be able to see it coming up on the screen. So all you do is go to askgihan.com, which will redirect to this page, which is a bulletin board on padlet.com. Double click anywhere and write down your title, which is actually where it says title, write down your name. And then where it says write something, write down your job title. And I've got to learn how to spell. Professional speaker. Okay, so name and job title. Okay, so I can see things coming up here. Okay, director of real estate company, financial advisor, good. Okay, so I'm seeing a few coming up. So I'm going to keep that open for another couple of minutes, a few more seconds, and then we'll get going with what I want you to do with that later. So I can move these around, so I will move them around a little bit. Okay, so good. All right, that'll do for now. So great. So the reason I want you to do that is because as we go through this webinar, where I talk about our world becoming fast, flat, and free, and the risks to your business or to your industry, where you are the opposite of that, which is slow, bumpy, and expensive, then we'll come back to this and we'll have a look at what you can do in your business to become more fast, flat, and free. So that's an overview of what we're going to cover today. So let me now, and you can still, if you haven't already participated and written onto the Padlet board, you can still do that in the background, but let me switch back to my slideshow here and keep going. We'll come back to that soon. So don't worry, that's not the end of that. We'll come back to that soon. Okay, so many of you will have heard me say before that our world is fast, flat, and free. And that means three things. So let me tell you briefly what those three things are. So fast is that obviously our world has become faster, mainly because technology has made our world faster. Innovation is happening faster, change is happening faster, and we all know this. Our world is also flat, and what I mean by that is that we've toppled hierarchies and structures. So previously, the organization was the most powerful and they served customers, and customers didn't have the power, but now customers have power, so we've become more customer-centric. We used to have barriers within regions and countries, and now we have a global a global marketplace, and it's easy for people to reach out, but also it's easy for the rest of the world to reach in. And of course, we become more social as well. So we're communicating with each other, not only with with our employers or the people that we buy from or our governments. And then, as a result of all those things have started costing less and sometimes even free. And that's because things have gone from physical to digital. It's free to move bits around. We're collaborating more, and we've got greater buying power, and therefore the cost of things has come down. So let me quickly show you some examples of fast, flat, and free, and then we'll look at the opposite, which is really what I want to focus on today, which is slow, bumpy, and expensive. So examples of fast, flat, and free. Here's an example of a device that you attach to your iPhone and it's being used in healthcare. So previously, if you had a heart condition, you had to go to your specialist every 6 months or 12 months, and you have an expensive series of tests, ECGs and so on. And now you can attach this little device to your iPhone and you can do an ECG yourself. So this is somebody demonstrating it on someone else, but you can actually do it for yourself. And you can actually do an ECG, and the data gets sent wirelessly to a remote monitoring center. So things that used to take a lot of time and they were expensive to do and used to cost a lot, you can now do. And this costs about $1 a day for you to do an ECG yourself. Here's another example. This is really a good example of flat. Previously, you needed a lot of expensive equipment and a production company and a lot of infrastructure to set up a movie production company or video production company. But Charlie's Crafty Kitchen is two little Australian girls. There's 8-year-old Charlie here on the right and her 5-year-old sister Ashley on the left. And they run one of the world's most popular food and cooking channels. And they do it on YouTube because YouTube has flattened the world when it comes to being able to reach out with video. And they make real money. So they make $140,000 per month, $140,000 per month from YouTube advertising. So this is like the world is now flat. And then they're going off to primary school and being told to sit and shut up and listen to the teacher. Okay, so that's one of the things that's happened with the world becoming flat. It's also, this is an example of both of all three, of fast, flat, and free. It's becoming a lot less expensive to create stuff. So you may have heard of 3D printing, which is used for printing real objects from blueprints that you can download off the internet. And one of the uses is for printing prosthetic limbs. And you can print prosthetic limbs for between $50 and $100. Now you need the blueprint, but that's easy. You just download that free and you print it. So this project, which is called e-NABLE, takes it a step further and has created this online social network for creating 3D limbs. So people who need the prosthetics can go online and talk about and say what they need, and other people around the world who've got a 3D printer and are willing to print this printer and create a prosthetic limb can do that and send it. So again, that used to be something that was expensive. It required a lot of equipment and it could only be done by by health professionals. Now that's become fast, flat, and free. Okay, so just a few quick examples of how our world has changed. So if fast, flat, and free is where we're going in the future, then the things to look out for in your business are the opposite of that in terms of looking for threats and risks. So the opposite of fast, flat, and free is slow, bumpy, and expensive. So what I'd like you to do is look at your business and your industry and look at and ask yourself, is there anything in your business which is slow, bumpy, or expensive? So let me give you quickly some key words to look out for, and then we'll drill into each of these three, and we'll go back to the things that you said about your business and your industry, and we'll analyze each of them, slow, bumpy, and expensive. But let me just give you some overview keywords first. So slow is there something that's technical or complex in what you do? Is it even a service? Because services are things which tend to be slow. Even fast services tend to be slower than having computers and automation. So if you've got something that's technical, complex, or a service, then chances are that A, can be outsourced, and B, it'll be automated soon. Is it bumpy? So remember, if flat is about toppling hierarchies and breaking down barriers, have you got barriers? Is what you're doing regulated or licensed or controlled, or is there something that customers are forced to do, which is just there because that's the way the industry works? Or is it expensive? So do you charge upfront fees? Do you charge high fees? Does it take a long time for people to see results from your service or your product? So those are three things that broadly we're going to look at in a few minutes. So let me give you an example which happened with one of my businesses, and it was a web design business. So 15 years ago, I've started this business about 17 or 18 years ago, and at that time I started one of Australia's first web design companies, and web design was slow, bumpy, and expensive. This is what our website looked like more than 15 years ago, about 16 years ago. So it's pretty basic, and we used to build websites for small businesses. You can see some examples here. So this is a small school website, a professional speaker, a financial planning firm. So those sort of websites would take about 3 months to build and would cost about $5,000. So roughly $5,000 in 3 months. Then technology got better. So a few years ago, I started running these workshops called Build Your Website in 2 days. So people would turn up. I'd run these workshops in Sydney. People would turn up with their laptop, and we'd sit there for 2 days, and they would actually build a really professional website, the kind of stuff that we were building for them before, but because the technology is available, they could build it now with my guidance in 2 days. And that would cost, so my workshop was around about $1,500, and the cost of web hosting became negligible. So if we went from $5,000 in 3 months to $1,500 and 2 days. And then for people who are in my e-Gurus community, you will, and I see some names here, you'll recognize that a couple of months ago, I ran this webinar, which is called Build a Strikingly Good Website in 1 hour. And in that webinar, I actually demonstrated building a website from scratch in an hour. A really good professional website. And again, the hosting is negligible. It's like $5 a month. So let's say $50 a year. So we've gone from $5,000 and 3 months to $100, let's say $50, and an hour. So that's taken 15 years. Like realistically, it's probably taken about 10 years for that shift to happen. Now, of course, the world's changing a lot faster now, but just think about, is there anything that you're doing in your business, in your organization, in this products and services that you offer that are really like time consuming and expensive? So in other words, slow, expensive, and bumpy, because most people couldn't create websites themselves. So this really was slow, bumpy, and expensive. Is there anything that you're doing that has now become, or could become, let's say in the next 5 years, fast, flat, and free? So now anyone can build a website. They can do it very fast and for almost no money. Now, you may not be able to see how that could happen. So you may be doing something that you think there's no way that this could become $100 in an hour, which is now costing $5,000 and 3 months. But don't worry whether you can see the path or not. Just believe that that's a path that you need to look out for. And what we're going to do in the second half of the webinar is look at your business, and let's look at some of the things that might be slow, bumpy, or expensive in your business. So what I'd like you to look at now are the things that are slow, bumpy, and expensive. And I know that when I do this with my consulting clients, one of the first barriers that they get in their mind is they go, yeah, this is slow, but it has to be done that way because it's hard, because it's technical, because the government requires it for compliance reasons, because that's just the cost of doing stuff. So I'd like you not to think about those barriers. I'd just like you to go, yeah, this is slow. Imagine if in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, somebody could make this instant or a lot faster. Okay, so that's what we're looking at in the second half of the webinar. Okay, so that's a little bit of a kind of a lecture and an overview of what slow, bumpy, and expensive means. Now let's drill down, roll up our sleeves, and let's look at your business, your organization, your job, and let's look at what's slow, bumpy, or expensive in it. Okay, so here's the first one. So is your business slow? So is there something that is technical or complex about what you do, or is it even a service? So I'm including services in this because there are things that are services that you're doing now, which are essential, which are slow, but they could be done either outsourced or automated. Just to give you an idea of a benchmark of where we look at, of what to look for, $1,000 laptop now, which is pretty typical, in 10 years' time, if you pay $1,000 for a laptop, it will have the power, the computing and processing power of a human brain. Okay, so you'll be able to get for $1,000 the equivalent or intelligence of a brain. Those are the latest predictions from the world's experts in looking at the future. So just keep in mind that anything that you're doing that's a service that uses your brain, in 10 years from now, a computer will be able to do. Okay, and a regular computer that anyone could have access to, not one of these huge supercomputers. All right, so let's have a look. I'm going to switch back now to our bulletin board, and let's have a look. So what I'd like you to do here, this is where I'd like you to participate by writing in the question box. So I'm going to choose somebody here, and I'm going to choose somebody at random, and let's look at this one here. So let's look at a financial advisor first. And the way to do this, the best way to get ideas for your business is, well, there's two ways to do it. One is, of course, you know your business really well, so you analyze it. But the other thing is to get outside expertise. Okay, so let's look at Corinne here, financial advisor. So I'm not going to ask Corinne to talk about what's slow, bumpy, and expensive about financial advice. What I'd like you to do is, in the question box, other people write down something that's slow about what a financial advisor does. Okay, and by getting other people to share their ideas, what we're doing is we're giving an outside perspective. So one thing, for example, one thing that's slow is that it takes a long time to create a financial plan. Now, when I say a long time, it might take a couple of weeks. It might mean that I go in to see my advisor and I sit down with them and it takes hours for a consultation with them. Okay, so something like that. So in the question box, if you write down things, okay, I can see here. Okay, so meeting with the advisor is one thing that's come up. What else? Yeah, face-to-face meetings time. And what else is slow about working with a financial advisor? Organizing a loan. Yep, good. Okay, what else? Reports and implementation. Good. You don't get the results till much later. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, that was one that I was going to even put in the free area. It's expensive because you don't see the results for a while. A statement of advice. The advisor's research. Okay, what else? Okay, and remember, we're not picking on Corinne here. We're looking at the financial advice industry and looking at, here are some of the things that people think of as slow, and these are things that might be risks or threats, which means you can do some things. You can either try to mitigate the risks and minimize them, but I think you're better off looking at this as an opportunity to say, imagine if we could make this incredibly fast. Okay, here are some others. How to pick a good one, assessing your personal financial situation, gathering all the information, reading or at least browsing the 1,000-page report. Okay, so these are some of the things that people are saying. Who are they really working for? Yeah, okay, so that might be, I think the person who made that comment is thinking about doing the research to find out whether what their interests are before you decide to work with them. Okay, so we're not really going to be looking at, okay, how do you make it faster? But let me do that as an example here. For example, we're talking about the face-to-face meetings time and the time it takes to actually assess your personal financial situation. Those are two of the comments that came up. So one of the things that's happening in financial planning at the moment, and all the financial planners are interested in it, some of them are concerned about it, is this thing called robo-advice, where you can go online and you can, as a client, you can go online, fill in a form, and it spits out a financial plan for you, like immediately. And the industry at the moment thinks that robo-advice is not really much of a threat because it's really only for people who've got very, very simple financial affairs. So it doesn't really manage complex situations. But remember, in 10 years' time, we're going to have computers as smart as humans. And also, remember that when you do this online advice and submit your information, the computer is good. The the software behind it is going to gather information from millions and millions of clients around the world, and it's going to be able to see patterns that humans can't see. So the robo device is a real threat to the financial planning industry, and the people who take advantage of that threat and look at it as an opportunity will be the ones who lead. Okay, so that's an example. Okay, I'm just seeing other comments that have been coming in. Yes, if they're being paid by the investment house, yes, correct. Okay, so other things that you need to research before you work with them. Okay, see a comment here. Great first step that may get people keen to go into more detail with the financial advisor. So I'm just reading that out. I'm not quite sure. I'm keeping all of this anonymous. I'm not quite sure what the person exactly meant by that comment. Okay, good. So you can see this is what I'd like you to do. What I'd like you to do, you might have already started doing this with your business, is to look at your business and go, okay, what's slow about my business? And the next step, which we're going to jump into, is what's bumpy. And for this one, again, I'm going to either pick somebody at random, but I'm going to give you the chance, if you'd like to be the volunteer for other people to tell you what's bumpy about your business. And remember, when we're looking at bumpy, what we're looking for are things like, is it regulated? Is it licensed? Is it controlled? Is it forced? A really good example is the taxi industry and the way that Uber has come in, because the taxi industry is regulated, licensed, controlled. I'm forced to call one of the couple of taxi companies around Australia. If I want to take a taxi, whereas Uber, I can get anybody around who's got a car and spare capacity to drive me. So that's an example of an industry that's heavily licensed, and it's quite bumpy. And if you can make it flat, then that's the future. Okay, so again, let me switch back, and we'll look at bumpy. So is there anyone who'd like to volunteer themselves and their job for us to look at? If there is, then just write it down in the question box saying you'd like to volunteer, and we'll look at you. It's going to be somebody who's listed something on the board here. All right, but if not, let's look at. Oh, yeah, okay. So Felicity said that. Felicity said. And Philippe has said that. So Philippe, will take you as a volunteer for the next one when we look at expensive. But let's look at Felicity. So Felicity, so you've got it says problem solver extension officer for state government. So can you just tell me a little bit more? Just type a little bit more about what you do, and we'll and I'll read that out so that we've got something to work from as a team. Okay, so we're looking at things that are what's bumpy about Felicity's job. Okay, so providing beef cattle information and R&D results to beef cattle producers. Okay, great. So what's bumpy about what Felicity does? So what we're looking at is what are threats and risks to her job, her career, because something could come along. Like, let's say it becomes deregulated, or it becomes it doesn't need to be licensed or controlled. So what's currently bumpy about it? And in some cases, we're guessing here because we don't know Felicity's business and her job specifically, but we've probably got some sort of ideas. Okay, so I reckon one thing is there's probably some regulations about this. There's probably some creation of reports that take a long time to produce and to consume and digest. I reckon there's a big couple of them. Let's see if there's any others coming through. And information is gathered and distributed. Yeah, or so someone said information is gathered and distributed automatically. So that would be the solution to it, to flatten it. So probably at the moment, Felicity is a bit of a bottleneck because she has to produce that information. So she's like a central clearinghouse or a hub, but that's going to become automated and distributed automatically in the future. What else? Okay. Anything that's got regulations around it or anything that's got barriers. So I reckon another thing might be that you need to have really important local knowledge, say about Australian agriculture and Australian livestock. And that's one of the things that's bumpy. Like specialist knowledge is something that's bumpy. Yeah, government controls. So that comment, I think, may or may not apply to you, Felicity, but I'm sure there's something there that may be relevant. Yes, a state government versus federal government. Yeah, so I think the point there is that it's probably being done at a state by state level at the moment, and there's no reason why it can't be done nationally or even globally. So there may be somebody who sets up some entrepreneur in Romania who sets up something that provides this service to the whole world. Okay. Okay, great. So you can see how that works. Okay, so let's look at the third one. The third one we'll use as Philippe, who is a creative design director and a designer. And just to give you an idea, to give you a prompt of what we're working with. So what we're looking at now is expensive. So what's expensive about what you do? So is your business or your job or your organization or your industry expensive? So do you charge a lot of money for what you do? Do you charge it up front? Does it take a while for people to get results? And remember, a while for web design was 3 months and now it's 1 hour. Okay, so while doesn't have to mean it takes years to get results. It may be that it takes days, whereas in the future it may be able to be done in minutes or instantly. Okay, so what's expensive about your business, your industry? So we'll use Philippe as an example. Yeah, and in fact, Philippe says that product design is a long process from 12 to 18 months, especially with design strategy. Okay, so this is Philippe here, creative director and designer. So, whoops, didn't mean to actually press that one there. Okay, so Philippe, so what can we suggest to Philippe is expensive about creative like design and that sort of industry. Okay, so I reckon cost is high, so that is definitely one thing. So it is expensive and it takes a long time to produce, as Philippe says, 12 to 18 months. Getting everyone on the same page and talking the same language, just understanding design speak. Okay, so I'm just reading out comments that people are typing in. Professional knowledge. Yep, so that's expensive. Okay, just keep it open for a few more seconds. Okay, anything that has delayed results and even upfront fees, paying for experience, yep, that's expensive. One of the changes that's happened, as I'm sure you've recognized, is a lot of things have gone from upfront fees to monthly fees or a regular ongoing subscription. So that's one of the ways that expenses have been reduced and people are relying on volume. So businesses and organizations that have not been able to scale that way by saying, okay, we'll just charge you $10 a month rather than charge you $1,000 up front, they're vulnerable, they're at risk. Okay, great. All right. So I'm just going to leave it there. So I hope you've given you a glimpse into looking at your business, your industry, even your job, and saying what's slow, bumpy, or expensive about it, because that's the first step. And we haven't gone into a lot of the problem solving here and figuring out how you can take advantage of that so that you're the people who become fast, flat, and free. And that's the next step. But the first thing to understand is what in your business, in your job, or in your industry is slow, bumpy, or expensive. And when you do that, it'll help you see some ideas. So, for example, I spoke at a dentist conference a couple of years ago, and I was talking about the fact that now your patients, in this case, will now ask their friends for recommendations rather than before they come to you, and before they get expert advice, before they choose you. And somebody in the audience, he wrote to me later and said, even that was so eye-opening to me when you said that, and I realized that thing was about me having to, that was a bumpy bit, that now that the world is flattened, people can ask their friends very easily for recommendations. And so he completely transformed his dental practice to be something that was highly social media focused. And he looked at building up basically a social media presence for dentists, and then started referring work out to other dentists. So completely transformed his business because he recognized that the business that he had this bumpy aspect to it. Now, most dentists won't go that far, and that's okay, and they're still successful for now. And I reckon the same for us. When you look at what's slow, bumpy, or expensive, you might go, yeah, actually, that's I get that, but it's too hard to fix. However, if you're the person who takes the opportunity to do something about it, you can be very, very successful. Okay, so just letting you know that I'm running at the start of next year a three-part webinar series, a paid webinar series called Innovation Kickstart. It kind of leads on from what we talked about today. So it's looking at innovation in your organization and how to become more innovative. And it actually, so it's for all leaders, whether you're the leader inside an organization or whether you're a leader as in a business owner. So it's a three-part webinar series. It's going to run in January because I want to make this something that runs before most people get back to work and really 2006 really hits them really hard. So on these days, January the 14th, 21st and 28th, so it's 3 weeks apart, three webinars a week apart, we'll run a three-part webinar series. And it'll tell you, so first of all, especially now that you've identified what's slow, bumpy and expensive, looking at what can be fast, flat and free in your business. The second webinar is looking at bringing in your expertise from your customers, your clients, your team members and the world and how to tap into them for innovative ideas. And the last one is actually how to put those ideas into action. Each of these webinars is twice as long as this one that you're on now. So each of them is a 1 hour webinar. So you get 3 hours of webinars and they're going to be practical and interactive like today's webinar was. And also you get support from me. So you get 90 days email support from me after the webinar is complete. So you get it for February, March, April. As you're putting the ideas into practice, you can ask me for help. So that three-part webinar series, it's going to be $197. But if you register before the end of, so December 18th, before the end of next week, you get it for basically half price. I really want to make this available to as many people as possible. So I've got a great incentive for you if you'd like to register before you break for Christmas. So I hope you got some value from today. If you'd like to know more about what I do, you can check me out at gihanperera.com. Just keep in mind that this webinar series will continue next year. So take a little bit of a break to run that Innovation Kickstart webinar series in January, but I'll be back again with the Future Proof webinars in February. Just remember that if you'd like to get a copy of my innovation report, which will ask you 15 questions to help you find things that are slow, bumpy and expensive in your business and try to make them fast, flat and free, then if you'd like that, just complete the exit survey, which you should get as soon as the webinar ends. I'll be happy to send you a copy of that. So thanks everyone for coming along today. Thank you to the regular subscribers who come along every month. I hope you have a very safe and happy Christmas season and all the best for 2016. I'd love to see you at the Innovation Kickstart series. By the way, if you'd like to register for that, just go to gihanperera.com and you'll see a big fat button that takes you to a page with more information. It's right there on the home page. Thanks everyone. Have a great day and bye for now.